Look, it's impossible for the average person to find a great attorney out there. There's so much misinformation. Now, let me introduce you to former Chief Deputy District Attorney Thomas Moskal. He was Las Vegas's top DUI prosecutor for years. He prosecuted the most high-profile DUI cases in Clark County. No one knows more about DUI law in Nevada. Just Google it. If you get charged with DUI, whether it's a misdemeanor or even more importantly a felony, you need Thomas Moskal representing you. His relationships with the prosecutors and judges and his knowledge of DUI law to work for you. So give him a call now or text him at 702-848-5555. It's your life and liberty that's at stake. Don't wait. Call now. That number again, 702-848-5555. Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site x-ray, EKG, ultrasound, and labs. They treat chronic conditions such as asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams and treatments such as testosterone enhancement and cancer screening. They're located on Sahara, 6125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. And the best part, they accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices. Office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client. So please give them a call, 702-248-0554.
As a 3-time international award-winning restaurant, Joe's New York Pizza uses only the freshest and best available ingredients. From giant slices of hand-tossed pie to calzone, strombolis, fingers, and wings, Joe's serves all your favorites. Stop in for a slice at one of their 2 Las Vegas locations at Paradise and Harmon or South Las Vegas Boulevard, or you can check out their menu at joesnewyorkpizzalv.com.
All right, welcome back. Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. Yes, that's what day it is. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. And, I always like having, all sorts of different people here in studio, agree, disagree, and the lady joining me in studio right now. Her name is Rhonda Kennedy. She is a civil rights attorney. She was on this show a few weeks back. A lot of hits on social media, so I said, we got to get her back on the show. She is running for Senate, state Senate here in the great state of Nevada. Rhonda, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I mean,
Yeah.
we can survive this storm out here.
Yeah, it is. I know, crazy, right? So I've been talking about the Black National Anthem, which I know we talked a little bit about it the other day. Lift every voice and sing. And listen, I come from a white person's perspective, but I still have absolutely no problem with the song. It's not divisive. I think it's actually a beautiful song, and I thought Cheryl Lee Ralph did a great job. A lot of people in your party, not you, a lot of people in your party are the only ones that seem to have a problem with this. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Carrie Lake refused to stand up. As a black female, I want to get your perspective on the Black National Anthem, if I may.
Well, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's divisive. And actually looking at the history of the poem, it was done during the civil rights movement when majority of the civil rights leaders at the time were Republicans. That's just facts. And so to have, my party now talk down about it, say it's divisive, if you listen to the words, it's not divisive. I think it should be embraced. And as a black Republican who is talking to other black Americans about joining the Republican Party, it makes it kind of difficult.
You bring up a really good point, and it kind of reminds me of if, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you're a homosexual, and if you're somebody who is gay, and you hear those in the Republican Party that are anti-gay marriage, and all they constantly talk about is how being gay is a sin. I don't think there's a lot of people who are gay that find that to be a good thing and say, oh, I can't wait to be a Republican, right? Isn't it the same thing?
Well, I mean, yeah, when you think about it, but, being against gay marriage or, gay rights and things of that sort. I mean, that's something that's personal. That's their personal beliefs. Being the color of my skin, I don't think that is something that it should be held against me.
I think it's both. I think if somebody is gay, it shouldn't be held against them, just like if somebody is black. I actually think they're two and two together. That's just my personal opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people should be discriminated against. I'm just saying comparing being gay to comparing being black is two different things. And I've heard that a lot, but as a black woman, I can't go and change my skin color or pretend that I'm not black. I mean, and I'm not saying that gay people would do that, pretend that they're not gay. But what I'm saying is that you could pass. You know, like there's a movie called what is it? Imitations of Life. Have you ever seen that?
I have not.
Okay, so at Imitations of Life, it's set back in like the 30s and 40s, where there's a really light-skinned black woman who passes off as being white, because back in those times it was very difficult to be black, even more difficult than it is today. So being a black woman, I can't change my skin color. I am who I am, and people can.
No, I understand that. I guess what I would say is, maybe it's a difficult question for you to answer, but I'm trying to dissect this, is why is it I only hear from some, I'm not saying all Republicans, not you, it's only coming from the right. Like, I haven't heard one prominent Democrat say, boy, that Black National Anthem's got to go, or a prominent Democrat that was sitting in their seat during the Black National Anthem. We're talking about some of the more popular, sadly, faces of the Republican Party. I mentioned what Marjorie Taylor Greene said about it. Lauren Boebert. You got Carrie Lake. Even though she's not a politician right now, she's still a big face in the party, and she's sitting down in her seat. Why is it it's coming from the right and not the left? As someone who is a Republican like yourself, can you help me understand that? Why is that?
I'm going to say because Democrats know better. I mean, what they do in the public is one thing. What happens privately when the cameras aren't rolling, when people aren't listening, is a completely different thing. So I don't think it's just from one side. I think it's from both sides. Just one side makes it, some people on the other side makes it more public, and people on the left side, they know how to hide it.
So do you think that there are Democrats privately that don't like the Black National Anthem?
Absolutely.
You do?
Yeah.
Who do you think is holding back?
Well, I think there are a lot of politicians, a lot of local politicians that I've experienced myself in Ventura County, who were invited but did not participate in the NAACP's
well, listen,
Freedom Awards.
Rhonda, I would be naive if I said that Democrats can't be racist. Okay?
Right.
Obviously, that's not true.
Right.
That would be a ridiculous statement. Is it a possibility that maybe there are some prominent Democrats out there that don't like the Black National Anthem? Certainly possible. You very well might be right. But all I'm saying is, all I can go by is what people actually say, right?
Right.
And there are prominent members of the Republican Party that have been outspoken since the Super Bowl, speaking out against the Black National Anthem. And, what I've said, and we both agree, is that this is not a divisive song. In fact, isn't it the opposite?
It is very.
Why would anybody, okay, I'm going to say it like this. Unless you're a racist, why would you have a problem with this song?
Or maybe ignorant of the fact of the song and it's where it derived from,
Right.
and just going by what they heard. And I would say we should judge individuals for their individual acts. Let's not condemn a whole party because there's individuals who have their own opinion about the Black National Anthem. We can't say it's Republicans in general. We have to say there are certain Republicans.
Yeah, and I try to do that on this show, and I try to walk the line, and I try to be very careful.
Yeah.
But the reason why I have a lot of issues with many Republicans these days is it seems to me that the ones that are speaking against the Black National Anthem, that are more proactive in going after the Black Lives Matter movement, the ones that defended Derek Chauvin or don't want to talk about issues facing the black community, or the ones who say systemic racism doesn't exist, these days are usually the outspoken Republicans. And that is where my issue lies. And I think to myself, here's a song that's supposed to bring people together, a beautiful song. I look at the lyrics. Like, if there was something in this song that I thought was divisive, something in this song that had any hatred at all, I'd be the first person to call it out. But it doesn't. It's a beautiful song. And a lot of people are like, oh, we only have one national anthem. We shouldn't have a black national anthem. And I have people on social media saying, why don't we have a white national anthem? And I laugh at that. And I say, were white people owned as slaves? Are white people really discriminated against in this country compared to black people? Any reasonable person would say no, right? That's why we have a black national anthem. Because as a whole in this country, from a white person's perspective, I want to hear your perspective, as a whole in the history of this country, black people have not been treated the same as people that look like me. Am I wrong?
In the history?
Yeah.
Well, of course. That's why we had the whole civil rights movement, which is exactly what that song is about. It's about equality. It's about civil rights. And during that time, you know, we had the civil rights bill that Martin Luther King and the rest of the freedom fighters were trying to get passed. So, which I would say that it was filibustered by, you know, Democrats, but that's the whole meaning of the song. And we can't forget that part of history. I mean, forgetting that part of history and the struggles that America went through, Black America, women, you know, with marching for equality, for rights, that's a part of American history that we have rights today because of the Constitution, which is the foundation of this country. I mean, interracial marriages, Loving v. Virginia, 1965. That's why you can go to different states as an interracial couple and not be arrested. You know, Brown versus the Board of Education. That's why there's no segregation in schools anymore, even though Joe Biden was for it. But the Constitution is the foundation, and that's this country, and it protects everyone, no matter what their color is.
And we agree on this, but this is my frustration again with the Republican Party. I have plenty of frustrations with many politicians, both on the left and the right. But it's like there's so many important things to talk about in this country right now, whether it be health care. We could be talking about crime, gun violence, which I do want to get to with you in the next segment, what took place at Michigan State, the economy, and yet Republicans take it upon themselves, I guess the base likes it, in attacking the Black National Anthem. We agree on this. It's disgusting. It has no place with either party, but it seems like the ones that are voicing their opinions against it are Republicans. I want to ask you about the State of the Union, because you haven't been on the show since the State of the Union speech. What were your thoughts on the speech as a whole?
Well, I took most of the time trying to fact check, because the things that Joe Biden was saying was just absolutely, it was a lot of untruths.
So give me like the biggest untruth that you recall from his speech that we can discuss.
Him cutting the deficit, you know, and that has to do with the COVID relief act, that, you know, we don't have that spending anymore, and that.
So it's not necessarily a lie, but you're saying it's embellishing.
It's not telling. This is what really gets me about politicians. Just tell the truth. Don't skirt the line. I know I'm an attorney. It sounds like something an attorney would say, right? You're skirting the line. And just tell the American people the truth, because not everybody's going to go fact check. They're just going to listen to what is said by a politician and take it as truth. And that's how, I know I'm going to use this word, but that's how misinformation gets spread across the internet and spread across from person to person, is politicians just not being upfront and honest. Just tell it like it is. Don't embellish.
Well, I would say that that's certainly a case to make of embellishment. I wouldn't disagree with that. I don't think it's a lie, but I can understand why some people would look at that as embellishment. I want to get your thoughts on this. Republican or Democrat, you know, I lost my sister to a fentanyl overdose a month ago. And I took a couple weeks off from work, and it's been very difficult for me and my family. And there was a moment in Joe Biden's speech where he introduced, if you recall, a family and a father who lost a 20-year-old daughter to a fentanyl overdose. Very emotional moment, right? You can see the pain in that family, exactly what my family is going through right now.
And Joe Biden talked about how, 70,000 fentanyl overdose deaths every year. A number of Republicans, seconds after Joe Biden introduced his family, started booing Joe Biden, and then somebody in the crowd, a congressman, shouted out, "It's all your fault." I did some fact checking just like you did. 90% of the fentanyl coming into this country, not from illegals. It's coming from legal points of entry, from legal U.S. citizens. And even if that number was different, I just find it so utterly repugnant and disgusting that a congressman, an elected official, would stand up and say, "It's all your fault." My sister did not die because of Joe Biden. My sister died for a number of reasons. Number one, she had a drug addiction, and we don't do enough in this country as Americans, not Democrats or Republicans, as Americans, to deal with those who suffer from addiction and mental illness. I'll throw that in there as well. That's number one. That's an American problem. Illegals didn't sell her the drugs. Illegals didn't smuggle the fentanyl in. 0.02% of the fentanyl in this country right now illegally are from illegals. It's coming from legal points of entry. I just think it's fair to criticize the president. I think it's healthy to have those types of conversations. But I thought this was a disgusting moment as far as Republicans. I mean, am I wrong in that? That's just my personal opinion.
Well, I think that's completely inappropriate, in my opinion. Fentanyl, not just,
and you know that moment, right?
Yes, not just fentanyl, but a lot of lethal drugs in general. Fentanyl is just the number one thing right now. There's so many young people dying from fentanyl. It's personally touched me with very good friends who've lost their children to fentanyl.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So I understand, and this is a crisis. That is the original pandemic, is fentanyl.
Right.
I don't think that was fully appropriate. I
Yeah.
think that if you have criticism, you do it after the fact. You give this family
Right.
family their moment,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe step up and join in. I mean, this isn't, like you said, this isn't a partisan issue.
It shouldn't be.
It's not a partisan issue, and
Right.
no,
It's an
it
American
shouldn't
problem.
be. It's an
Yeah.
American problem because fentanyl takes any victim,
Yeah.
whether you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, whatever your political affiliation is, it doesn't matter. This
Right.
is killing Americans.
Agree.
And there should be something done about it.
I don't know if I like this because I'm agreeing with Rhonda way too much. I don't know if this is a good thing. No, I'm just kidding.
That's one of my
I'm just
that's
kidding.
one of my
So let me ask you
platforms,
this
and
then.
it's always been.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You are running for senator. This is a big time job. If you become senator of the great state of Nevada, what is the first thing that you want to do to at least help move along this fentanyl issue and save lives? Like, what would you want to implement?
I know this is a dirty word, but there needs to be more regulations on the dispensing of prescriptions and narcotics, because let's just be real, there are pill farms, and
Right.
there are legal prescriptions that are being written by doctors who are licensed, and that's not being, well, I shouldn't say regulate. It is being regulated. It's just not being enforced enough to stop these doctors from getting behind these pill farms.
Overprescribing.
They're overprescribing,
Sure.
but there are doctors, and I know there are doctors who are actually in the business for people who would be drug dealers on the
Right.
streets, but instead they open clinics, and
Yeah.
they actually have doctors that they pay to write prescriptions.
I agree. And, my sister was in and out of hospitals even a month before her death. And they put her in a hospital for a week. It could be a methadone clinic, whatever the case may be. And then they're gone. And then they leave the hospital, and the same issues seem to happen. They go right back to the drugs. We're not doing enough in this country to deal with people that have major drug issues. And no, I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100%.
And a lot of it comes to tackle the drugs. We have to tackle the underlying issues. People don't just go out and say they want to do drugs. There are underlying issues that cause people to do drugs, and I think
Yeah.
that we need to put more effort into fixing those things.
Oh yeah, I'm completely in agreement there. I just hate it when people want to just blame one side of the aisle. I mean, I will say this though, because we're going to get into gun control, and I am going to blame one side of the aisle for this. So I guess you could call me a hypocrite. But we just had a terrible circumstance and a terrible mass shooting that took place. I put on the TV last night. I'm preparing the show for today to talk about topics with you. And I put on the tube, and on all the networks, it's breaking news. Active shooter, Michigan State. Turns out the 43-year-old, I'm not even going to say his name, the shooter's name. I try not to do that. Killed 3 Michigan State students and critically wounded 5 others. He opened fire on the East Lansing campus at around 8:30 p.m. last night, Rhonda. It was a tense and chaotic manhunt that ended about 4 hours later when police found McCrae with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Officers found a note in his pocket about a threat to 2 public schools. I guess you could call it a miracle that more people didn't lose their life. My heart and my thoughts and prayers go out to all the families, that, of course, that were affected by this. But, you know, I saw something touching on TikTok, and it's a young lady who survived the Sandy Hook shooting. She was in school during the Sandy Hook shooting, and she was on campus during this mass shooting that she survived. And she made such a good point. She's like, I'm sick of the thoughts and prayers. We hear it all the time. I want action. You're going to become, you know, you're attempting to become a senator. Nothing's done here, man. What do you think needs to be done to help prevent these types of mass shootings from happening over and over and over again?
Well, one of the things is, I believe Michigan, the university, I believe they defunded their campus police. We can't take away guns from all the good guys and not allow the good guys to have guns, and the only ones that have guns are the bad guys. I don't think that more gun control is going to solve that problem. There's, you know, obviously there's something wrong with the guy. Either he has mental illness, or he just has, you know, if he was angry or it was out for a vendetta. Not having guns or making guns illegal would not have stopped his actions. There are more weapons than just guns. I mean, me personally, I would rather have a shooter than a bomber, because that's just, you have no chance of surviving that.
We don't really have many people, thank God, bombing things. I mean, I remember, you know, there had been a couple, but, you know, we really, I remember the Boston Marathon as being one, where several people died there, and of course the Oklahoma City bombing, which was a horrendous tragedy. Timothy McVeigh.
Right.
But here's what I would ask you, and I guess this is the question I have for people when it comes to gun controls. God forbid you're in a mall or you're at a concert, and there's an evil person that wants to kill as many people as possible. I hope that doesn't happen, but unfortunately it happened in our backyard here in Las Vegas, as you know, October 1. Would you rather have that person with a knife or a pistol or an AR-15? Now, my answer would be, well, obviously, I wouldn't want that person with an AR-15.
Or a bomb.
Well, of course.
I mean,
of course you don't want somebody with a bomb, but luckily, we don't seem to have that problem anywhere near the level of mass shootings. I see these AR-15s and these weapons that were built for one reason and one reason only, to kill as many people as possible in a short period of time. And I say to myself, why do public citizens need those types of weapons?
Well, I have an AR-15, and I love my AR-15 because it's for my own protection. And if I'm in a mass shooting, I'm gonna here in Nevada, I'm gonna be like, well, thank God I'm armed and I can protect myself and protect other people, and hopefully there's other people around me who are armed as well, where we all can defend each other and defend innocent people who aren't armed. Because, you know, if there's only one person with a gun and that's the bad guy, we have no chance. So like your answer to your question, I would preferably be, if I was in a shooting, to be armed. I would be armed because I'm armed. I'm a Second Amendment supporter, and I exercise my Second Amendment right a lot, and I hope that other people do too, or that it's in the area if there was a shooting. And there's a lot of people who have been saved by law-abiding citizens who were armed and prevented mass shootings.
Sure, you could come up with examples of that, but I would also say there's a lot of people that are killed because of bad people with assault weapons as well. I mean, I go to Buffalo, security guard had a pistol, and 18-year-old in Buffalo had an AR-15, killed the security guard, killed a number of people just because of the color of their skin. Happened here in Las Vegas. AR-15s were used in that shooting that killed over 60 people. It happened in Uvalde, Texas. I could go all the way back to Columbine. I hear what you're saying. but do we really need assault weapons to defend ourselves? I don't want to take guns away from you.
An
but
AR-15 is not an assault weapon. That is what people say. But AR-15 is not an assault weapon.
Then why are
it's
these
a rifle?
Understood. So why are these types of guns? I'm talking about the specific types of guns that are used in some of the biggest mass casualty, mass shootings in the history of this country, like Las Vegas. Why do people need those guns to defend themselves? And are you okay with an 18-year-old, the day he turns 18, walking into a gun store with zero training, being able to purchase multiple AR-15s and thousands of rounds of ammunition? As someone who aspires to be a senator, are you okay with that?
Are you just like I would be okay with an 18-year-old walking into a recruiter's office and signing up for the military and going off to war to die for this country?
Big difference, though.
And no, it's how is that a big difference?
I'll answer that, because they have to be trained on how to use those weapons. When you're 18 years old and you sign up to be in the military, you have tons of training on how to use that weaponry. A regular citizen that does not sign up for the military, an 18-year-old like the one who shot up all those kids in Uvalde, Texas, had zero training. Now, some people might say, well, what would training have stopped that kid to do what he does?
Question.
But the big difference there is, if I want people that are law-abiding citizens to be trained on how to use those guns, there's no training involved. Why is it that, and my argument that I always make is, you drive a car, right? And you have to re-register your car, and they check your eyesight. They check everything, and you have to learn how to drive the car correctly, even though I think we both could agree there's still a lot of bad drivers out there.
Yes.
But
The difference?
why don't we do that with guns?
Because
and I understand it's a right and it's a privilege.
Exactly.
I get that.
That's what I was going to say. One is a constitutional right enumerated in the Constitution, and one is a privilege. Driving is a privilege. Your Second Amendment is an enumerated right, which means it's spelled out in the Constitution. That's the difference.
Even though that was written when we had muskets.
It doesn't matter.
Times don't change. So then why can't we have loaded bazookas? Why can't we have tanks, loaded tanks? Why are there laws against machine guns?
Because there's not a Second Amendment right to have a tank or a bazooka.
A bazooka is a weapon.
A bazooka is a weapon.
Sure.
It's not a firearm. It's not.
What about machine guns? There's a lot of machine guns that are illegal.
A right to bear. Well, a lot of machine guns are illegal because Congress made them illegal.
So Congress can make things illegal regardless of what the Constitution says. That's my point.
Well, okay. So let's go back to common law.
Okay.
There is no right that is absolute. The government can restrict. They can't deny, but they can restrict. That's like your First Amendment right of free speech. You can't go into a crowded movie. That's why you can't go into a crowded movie theater and yell fire. Can't say, "Oh, that's my First Amendment right." There are restrictions, but what current government is trying to do is to restrict it so much that they make it non-existent. Like my case, McDougal versus Ventura County, when they closed gun stores and said that they were non-essential, they essentially made it illegal, made it a misdemeanor crime for a citizen in Ventura County to buy a gun. That's restricting it right out of existence, and that's wrong. And that's what legislators today are trying to do: use fear to take away your Second Amendment right. Your Second Amendment is just as important as your First Amendment.
Okay, good. I think this is where we disagree. I hear a lot of rhetoric from the right saying that Democrats want to take all your guns away and take your Second Amendment rights away. I disagree with that completely. I can't name, and maybe you can help me out with this, one prominent Democrat that wants to take all your guns away or take your Second Amendment rights away. We had a assault weapons ban in the 90s, right? Implemented, put in there, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton leaves office, Republicans take over. What do? They let that law run out. And what happened was, if you look at the stats of gun violence, skyrocketed the next several years. It worked.
Gun violence?
Yeah.
Gun violence where?
In this country, in the United States of America.
Let's be real. The 90% of the gun violence happens in the inner cities. And they're not going to the gun store and buying guns. So,
So why did that, if that's the case, and you think it only happens in the inner cities, then explain to me why, when the assault weapons ban expired, gun violence tripled. Why is that? If what you're saying is true, that it's only the inner cities, then why is it that we had that ban in the 90s, and then when that ban ran out, Republicans let it run out, gun violence skyrocketed? What's the reasoning behind it? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, it's not just assault rifles, or wherever you call them. They're not just confined to one area. You think there's not assault rifles in in the inner cities?
No, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere, but
I
they're not.
understand.
They're not legally. They're 90% of them aren't legally bought. They're obtained illegally. The guns that commit crimes, and when you say that some of the mass shootings, okay, those people went and bought a gun, but when you compare it to the number of people who are killed in the inner cities, the Democrat-run inner cities across the country, the numbers are staggering. So I would like to see an outrage from the left about what's going on in the Democrat-run inner cities. The ones that have the strictest gun control is where most of the gun violence has happened. I mean, how do you explain that?
I think that if you look at city by city and state by state, you'll find that it's not just Democrat-run cities that have major issues when
Chicago?
it comes to. Well, that's one of them, sure, but
Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, there's a few that are run by Democrats, absolutely. But-
90% of them.
well, I don't know if it's that high.
Let's name one
but-
that's run by a Republican that has a high gun violence in the inner city.
I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not going to make
Okay,
up
we'll
numbers. I don't have the numbers in front of me. That's not something I'll never do. I'll never just make up numbers for the sake of winning an argument.
That one will be
but
continued.
but what we're right. But what I will say is this, and I go back to what I say earlier. What are the solutions? Even if that was the case, that Democrat-run cities, all the gun violence is happening there. I don't know if I would necessarily agree, and I would also talk about what took place in Uvalde, Texas. I don't know who's the governor of Michigan, but we just had a mass shooting at Michigan State University. I'm pretty sure Texas isn't run by a bunch of Democrats. You look at the gun violence in Texas, and you look at what happened at that Walmart shooting several years back.
How many people died?
In the Uvalde, Texas shooting, in the school shooting?
In the Walmart. You mentioned Walmart. How
A
many?
lot. I think it was over 10 people.
How many?
Yeah.
You know what? That's going to happen in Chicago over the weekend.
Sure, and that doesn't make things any worse or any better.
It doesn't.
Sure.
But so the problem is not guns. The problem is illegal guns. The problem is guns being straw bought to give to people who aren't eligible to have firearms. So maybe we should start tracing those guns back to see where do they come from and stop the illegal flow of guns to criminals who aren't supposed to have firearms.
I think it's also, though, important to note that it's the governors of these states that have the ultimate authority. For example, in Texas, Governor Abbott just passed a law a few weeks ago that actually will make it easier for those that are mentally ill to purchase guns legally. It's not necessary.
How so?
Well, if you look up the law that he just passed, there are loopholes in the laws. Background checks are lighter than they should be, and mental health background checks. If you look at the bill that was just passed a couple weeks ago, Ron DeSantis as well is working to pass new gun legislation that would actually make it easier for people in the state of Florida to purchase guns. I don't think that's the answer. I don't think hardening schools is the answer. I don't think more guns is the answer. I don't think arming our teachers is the answer. I think there's a lot of things that need to be done. It's not one thing or two things or three things.
I think teachers should be armed.
You do?
I do. I think teachers should be armed, or they should have a marshal in school, just like during 9/11. Shortly after 9/11, they had an air marshal on certain flights, and they were armed. Why? Because of the dangers and the terrorist threats and the fear of having another. So there should be. I would feel comfortable if there was a trained armed person in my kid's school.
I guess this is, and I'm not saying you do this, but this is my issue with some Republicans when they say that. For many years now, we've heard attacks from the right on teachers that are indoctrinating our kids, and they're teaching critical race theory, and they really paint a lot of these teachers in this country out to be bad people that can't be trusted, but yet in the same token, they want to say, well, let's just give them guns. I just find that to be so
not just give them guns. They need training, and that's not all. All teachers aren't bad. I'm not saying all teachers
I'm
are
not saying you
indoctrinated.
said that, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of people in your party have been attacking teachers for a very long time, claiming that they are telling our kids to get transgender surgery and being explicit on sex. It's nonsense. There's 300,000 teachers in this country. Are there a small batch of bad ones? Perhaps, sure. But they paint the picture and paint the broad stroke that all these teachers are just so bad, and I just disagree with that.
That all teachers are bad. I mean, I don't.
Well,
think-
I mean, there are a lot of. If you watch Fox News and a lot of right-wing publications, they paint the picture that our teachers are all indoctrinating our kids. I think it's absurd.
But Fox News doesn't speak for every Republican. Or,
No, they don't.
I mean, they're just the ones that's more prominent on TV, but not all Republicans feel that way.
Not
Of
all
course-
Republicans feel that
of
way,
course
but a
all
lot of
teachers
prominent
aren't
ones do.
bad.
A lot of
But
prominent
it's
ones do.
something. It's when the bad teachers are the ones that are the more vocal and have the spotlight on them that we see that. But no, I mean a trained armed teacher or a trained armed law enforcement in schools, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Well, I don't know if that would solve a lot of the problems we have in this country. I guess this is where we disagree. I don't think more guns are the answer. Obviously, do I want guns in the hands of good people and not bad people? Of course, absolutely. I think that every law-abiding citizen should be allowed to defend themselves. And again, something else I hear from the right is Democrats want to take all your guns away. You hear that all the time. I'm not saying you say that, but you hear that from the right
Some
all the
Democrats
time.
want to take all your guns away.
Who?
Not all of them.
Who?
Some of them think that we shouldn't even have guns.
Who has expressed that or even attempted to put into law that we shouldn't be allowed to have? Like, give me one name of one prominent Democrat that has ever said anything even close to that.
Beto O'Rourke.
Beto, I spoke to Beto actually on the phone yesterday because he just lost his sister. And Beto is somebody that has spoken about assault weapons. Never has he ever said on the record, I want to ban all weapons. Never has he ever said on the record, I want to take all your guns away. I think this is a really important discussion and a really important distinction. Because if you're going to talk about and disagree with a ban on assault weapons, fine. I think that's a conversation that we all should have. And even though I might disagree with you on that, I think that's a fair conversation to have. But I can guarantee you, Rhonda, that O'Rourke has never said that he wants to take all your guns away. In fact, to the contrary.
Does he want to?
No.
He doesn't want to.
No, he wants law-abiding citizens to be responsible, as long as you're not a felon, to be able to protect yourself. And by the way, he says it all the time. He wants guns out of the hands of bad people. And like me, because I agree with his gun stance, he believes that weapons of war, or in this case, assault weapons,
It's a
should be
rifle.
banned.
It's not an assault. An AR-15, which he says he wants to take away, is not an assault weapon. It's a rifle.
Okay, well, it's a rifle that can shoot an enormous amount of rounds in a very short period of time, and that weapon was built for one reason only, not for self-defense, to kill as many people as possible in a short period of time.
Let's go back to the founding of the Constitution.
Okay.
So the Constitution, there's only one amendment, and that's the 13th Amendment, that goes towards private citizens. Other than that, that was the Constitution protecting the people from the government. So when the government is the only ones that have guns, how do the people protect themselves?
Well, my issue is the AR-15 and assault weapons similar to it were built for one reason and one reason only, and not for self-defense. Somebody on social media said they were built for hunting. That is absurd. Any hunter will tell you they don't need to hunt with an AR-15. The reasons why these weapons were built were to kill as many people as possible in a short period of time, for war. When you're in your home, and I hope this never happens to anybody, but sadly there are home invasions, I want you to be able to have weapons to protect yourself. But nobody can convince me that you need an AR-15 to protect yourself. I just don't think these guns should be sold to the public. I agree with Beto O'Rourke on this.
I wouldn't shoot my AR-15 for my own protection in my house because you may end up killing your neighbor or someone else or your family member. I mean, the best home protection is actually a shotgun.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
But if I want to go and shoot my AR-15, I have a right to do that. I mean, I'm not going to do mass shootings, but as a citizen and protection under the Second Amendment, I can take my AR-15 and go legally shoot if I want to.
Right now
I don't need a reason to. I don't need an explanation to.
Right now you can. And my personal opinion is I would rather take somebody's personal enjoyment of shooting an AR-15 at a range away if it saves lives.
Well, you know what Ben Franklin said. Those who will give up their freedoms for security deserves neither.
Okay,
and I wouldn't give up, and I wouldn't ask someone else to give up their rights to bear arms because I'm afraid that some psycho might go and have a mass shooting one day. I would concentrate on the illegal guns that are flooding into the inner city and killing 10-year-olds who are sleeping in their beds or having a birthday party. That's where I wish the Democrats and America would start concentrating on, not a random shooting where, any life lost is tragic. However, when there are hundreds and hundreds of lives being lost in the inner cities every every
Well, my
year.
opinion is whether it's the inner city or whether it's in the middle of nowhere, it doesn't really matter to me. Someone killed by a gun is gun violence. I guess I would disagree
But
with
they're
your.
illegal guns.
Well, I would disagree with your characterization of random. We've had way too many school shootings in this country. It's beyond reparable. It's awful. And we had another mass shooting on the campus of Michigan State. Don't know whether those guns were legal or illegal, but I can tell you that the gun that was used at Uvalde, Texas, from that 18-year-old was legal.
And I have to say this too. I want to know. Democrats are kind of silent on this because whenever I'm black, right? But whenever there's an out of character like mass shooting and the perpetrator is black, nobody really says anything. Like if he was,
The perpetrator was black last night. It was all over the news.
that's what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is no. I guarantee you, if he was white, it would have been politically motivated. He was a white nationalist. He was this. He was that. But nobody says anything. Just like the driver in Wisconsin, in my home state, that plowed into people and he was black and killed all those people.
Yeah.
Nobody really says anything. I mean, it
What do you mean nobody really says
They
anything?
don't
That was
say-
a huge story.
it was a huge story.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, if he was white, it would have been political.
Well, if
He was
there's a political
he was a white
agenda,
what?
then isn't that important to discuss that?
As soon as it happens, there's
Yeah.
a political agenda. As soon
Well,
as it
give me,
happens.
okay, so help me out. Give me an example of a person who is black that commits a heinous crime in a mass shooting that had a political agenda and was part of a hate group that wasn't discussed in the media. Can you give me an example of one black person, clear evidence that he was, let's just say this for example, big liberal who hated Republicans and wanted to just go in and kill a bunch of random people. Can you give me an example of one person that had that the media didn't cover?
Well, I can't give you that right now. Like you, I would have to
Right.
have to research that.
But I'm not making that claim.
But what I'm saying is
Yeah.
that before anything even comes, before there's an investigation, before there's a real motive, I'm not saying the police, I'm not saying the investigators, I'm saying the media immediately picks it up and they make it political.
If it's true, do you have a problem with that? Like, for example, Texas, El Paso, the Walmart shooting. The animal had a manifesto attacking brown people and those who are undocumented. White supremacist. If you're a white supremacist and you commit a heinous act and kill somebody, don't you think that should be covered?
Of course it should.
So okay. So we agree.
Once that comes out.
So we agree. So if you
Right.
can, right. So if you, I'm just being honest with you. I can't think of one example of somebody who is black that maybe is a black supremacist or maybe hates white people, that just kills a bunch of white people. Like, I would think that if that did
I think
happen,
the guy
it would be
was-
covered.
I think the guy in Wisconsin was, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
would have to research
because
that.
I know that he was a hate-filled animal. The trial was covered ad nauseum, which should have been. A lot of innocent people died. I'm pretty confident that whether you're Fox News or CNN, if somebody who happens to be black kills people and has an agenda, whether it be race, religion, political stuff, that it would be covered. I'm pretty confident that they would cover that.
They cover it differently. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. They cover it differently. When the underlining issue in the first place, even with the white supremacist, that guy, I mean, if you're that hateful on somebody, you have a screw or two loose upstairs. It all comes down to mental illness. The guy in Wisconsin,
Sure.
mental illness. And
Well, if you're going to kill a bunch of innocent people, obviously your brain isn't functioning normally. I think we all could agree on that. There's something mentally wrong with you, and there's probably also some hate in your heart. I don't know. Me personally, hopefully we could agree on this. I don't care what the color of your skin is. I don't want more innocent people to die in this country. These mass shootings happen at way too high of a rate. And even if we disagree on how to get there when it comes to solutions, I want something done. Nothing is being done in Washington.
what
Nothing.
do you want done? In a perfect
Wow, that's
world,
a loaded.
In
Okay,
a perfect world, what
that's a
would you
loaded
want?
question. Are you sure you want me to answer that?
I
Okay.
do.
Well, I'll start here. I want weapons of war off the table. I don't want those types of weapons sold to the public. I believe our brave men and women in uniform and law enforcement. That's number one. Number two, I believe there are way too many loopholes. Like, for example, you can go to a gun show and they'll do a background check, but they'll sell you the gun, and the background check takes a week. That's a loophole. That's number 2. That can't happen. Number 3, red flag laws. Every case is different. I'm not saying a neighbor should be able to call on their neighbor and say, hey, I don't like that guy, he just threatened me, and then take the guy's guns away with no evidence. That's not what I'm talking about. It's a case-by-case basis. In some states in this country, if a husband leaves a voicemail for his wife that says, I'm going to come home and I'm going to kill you, that husband will probably be arrested, but within 24 hours, he will be able to legally purchase a gun. I have a serious problem with that. Red flag laws should not be generic. It should be a case-by-case basis, and we have to be careful with it. But we don't enforce red flag laws enough in this country, and state by state, the laws are different. That's number 3. Then I go to mental illness. There is no question that we are not doing enough to help those that are mentally ill in this country. We need to do more. Now, I think if we just started with those 4 things, I could name you plenty of more. If we just started with those 4 things, even if you give me 2 out of those 4, give me 2, lives will be saved. People will still be able to protect themselves with guns so long as you're a law-abiding citizen, you're not a felon. Give me 2 out of those 4.
And who determines, okay, so who defines what a weapon of war is?
Sure.
And then 2, red flag, do we still have due process in this country? Someone makes a statement, not even if it's a threat, no due process, no conviction.
So in my opinion, and by the way, in this country, you don't need a conviction, by the way, to send somebody to the mental hospital, or you don't need a conviction.
But you need a judge to say that you have to go there. You just can't
Well,
commit
if you're
people.
found guilty, sure. But if there is overwhelming evidence, like a voicemail, a threat of killing somebody's life, that person should not be allowed to purchase a weapon until they get a psych evaluation and until a judge deems that person legally okay to purchase a gun. If you leave a voicemail on somebody's phone that says, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to get a gun and I'm going to kill you, that person should not be allowed to purchase a gun until being evaluated. That will save lives.
Or someone to evaluate that it's a credible threat, because people say things and it doesn't mean that it's credible.
Well,
I
understand what you're saying, and not everybody that threatens somebody's life means that they're actually going to do it. Yes, you're right about that, but I don't think that should stop us. First of all, you shouldn't be threatening somebody's life to begin with. Obviously, mentally, there's something wrong with you if you're going to say you're going to kill somebody.
Or you snapped.
Well, yeah, snap, whatever. I think if you're mentally sane, nobody will tell somebody that they're going to kill somebody. That's just my personal.
That's called temporary insanity. Temporary, where you can be so angry and you have tunnel vision to where you mentally snap. You're not mentally ill.
Yeah.
But you just see red. And that's a real defense.
Well, I'll open up the phones on this. Tell me what you guys think. Phone number 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, we're talking about gun control. Of course, in studio is Rhonda Kennedy. She is running for state Senate here in Nevada as a Republican.
Senate.
What's that?
U.S. Senate.
U.S. Senate. Yes, I apologize. As a Republican, we're talking about gun control. We're talking about, and this conversation started because of the tragedy that took place on the Michigan State campus last night, where a 41-year-old decided to kill 3 innocent people, 5 people wounded. What are your thoughts on this? Do you agree with Rhonda? Do you agree with me when it comes to assault weapons ban? Let me give out that number. 702-221-7283. Again, that number, 702-221-SAVE. If you want to be a part of the conversation, now's the time to do it. 702-221-7283. I guess, we can start with what we agree on, which is I think we both agree that there's way too much gun violence in this country, right? We agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, way too much gun violence. Something needs to be done to fix the problem. Fair enough?
Yes.
Okay, so we agree on the most basic principles where gun violence is out of control. We need to do something about it. We just need to figure out how to get there, right? Right? Fair enough? Republicans and Democrats aren't doing anything right now. There's nothing. There were some laws that were put on the books that were bipartisan 7 or 8 months ago. Not enough.
But how does that help? That's just a feel-good things. That stuff really doesn't help. The laws really doesn't help, because if you want a gun, you're gonna get a gun. It's the criminals that get all the guns. They're making it harder for law-abiding citizens to get guns, not the criminals.
Well, I think there are certain guns that would. I guess this is where we disagree, and I don't think we can just put our hands in the air and say, oh, well, bad people are going to get their hands on guns. Nothing we can do about that.
Stop the bad people. Stop the people who are giving the bad people guns.
Well, I agree with you. I do believe we need to enforce those laws more. I personally believe if you sell a gun to somebody, an illegal gun, it should be a mandatory prison sentence. Hands down. If you sell a gun to somebody and it's an illegal gun and you know about it, a lot of these people get probation, especially if it's a first-time offense, right? I think that it should be a mandatory prison sentence. All right, let's get to the phone, 702-221-7283. Let's start off with Raymond. Raymond is first off on Pushing Limits. Hi, Raymond. Thanks for calling in, my friend. What's on your mind?
35 days until Kevin Kruger gets fired.
Okay, thank you for the call, Raymond. Sometimes we have prank callers. He's talking about Kevin Kruger, the UNLV basketball coach, who's coming up next in about 10 minutes.
Oh.
Not sure what that has to do with gun control. By the way, I'll make an inappropriate joke and say I hope they shoot lights out tonight against San Jose State. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Ashley. Ashley, what's going on?
Hello.
Hi, Ashley.
My name is Ashley Zachary.
Okay.
Hello.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
So I am in between a Democrat and a Republican, to be honest. My cousin yesterday, he's on campus. He's on a full ride scholarship. I wish that he was choosing to bear arms yesterday because he was hiding in a closet, and it went through our family messages of him being unsafe and everything. So like I'm getting choked up because it hits home differently when it's your family, right?
Of course. Of course.
I do believe in the Second Amendment to be able to bear arms because if my cousin if he had the right to bear arms yesterday when this was transpiring, maybe, those people could have been alive.
Right.
And so I can agree and disagree with your statements on, certain things. But I just wanted to call in because it really hit home for the Johnson family.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that. I really am. I'm so sorry to hear that. And, like you, I think we probably agree more than we disagree. I want some things done. And I think Rhonda agrees, too. There's way too much gun violence in this country. And Republicans and Democrats, instead of them bickering back and forth, we want things to get done, right? I'm sure you would agree.
Absolutely, and I would like to say that I definitely respect Rhonda Kennedy on her Second Amendment right and how she has opened my mind and, sending positive vibes and prayers for Michigan.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate that. Great to hear from you. Thank you so much. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Al. Al is next on Pushing Limits. Hi, Al. What's going on, man?
It was nice meeting you yesterday. I'm sorry about the circumstances, Sometimes
Al was one of those people that saw me get escorted out of a Republican event. Hey, Al, you're going to want to listen to the first segment tomorrow because I'm going to play the audio and video of me getting kicked out. But go ahead, my friend. It was nice to meet you as well.
Anyways,
go ahead.
The thing is that, and, let me just tell you, what's the name of the person who's running for Senate again? Rhonda, what's her last name?
Her name is, why don't you tell him yourself? Yeah.
It's Rhonda Kennedy, RhondaKennedy.com.
Rhonda Kennedy. Okay, you're running for U.S. Senate. You're not running for state Senate, right?
That's correct.
Correct. That's my fault. I misspoke. I do that from time to time.
Okay.
I misspeak just like Donald Trump. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's
or
fine.
Joe
Biden.
Well,
that's our problem. And I'm a Republican, and just so you know, my background is I spent my whole adult life in Orange County. And basically, when you go over there, I don't even vote for 35 years because it's a turnkey system. Everything's so conservative. It's like where we're all trying to get to. So there was no need for me to get, fix something that's broken. But now that I'm over here in Nevada for 5 years, I want to make this point out. I've been getting more involved in politics. I can't say I'm a advocate Republican, but I am a Republican trying to make this a little more like Orange County. But this is one of the problems. We have a lot of problems with Republicans here in Nevada, and we have a lot of good things. But I was working with a candidate that was running for Congress, and his assistant, he goes, I'm against red flag laws because somebody can say that you have a mental problem and, like you get in trouble with your girlfriend and they'll take away your gun rights. So I don't like red flag laws. Now, he may have a point there, but my point is, they just got to be more stricter and well defined. You know, that you maybe have to go a little further. You have to get like a doctor's evaluation or somebody to evaluate you to have a red flag law. But I support some kind of red flag laws because of the fact that I let somebody move into my house in Orange County, and he was supposedly a Christian, and he knew all the Bible. The guy was a mental case. I almost had to physically kill this guy to get him out of my house.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just an idiot. And the church was protecting him because they go, oh, the doctors are a bunch of drug addicts, and we don't, they're just going to give them drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to. I go, this guy needed some help, man.
Yeah.
And I'm not Dr. Phil to be over having. And I'm sorry to be going a little
I
off.
thought you were.
Yeah,
you're the Hispanic version of Dr. Phil.
I'm the Hispanic version of Dr. Phil. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so
hey,
the
will you
thing
be
is
voting for Rhonda? That's the really important
I have
question.
to look at all the candidates first.
Okay.
I got to see that. I mean, I know she's been making an effort, but I can tell you, Rhonda, I'm an electronics engineer. I'm a numbers guy. I know all the numbers, and it's probably the most winnable race.
Hey, do me a favor.
I don't
Don't
even
vote
think
for any of
Donald
those.
Trump-
Don't vote for any of those morons who were at that event yesterday. And by the way, the head of the Clark County Republican Party, Jesse Law, is an idiot. I just want to be. Wait, let me say that again because it felt really good.
Go ahead.
Jesse Law is an idiot. Okay, I just want to be clear on that, Al.
And,
Okay.
and I
No,
just want
that's
to
fine.
tell
Well,
Al.
we've all got, but Ron, I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks,
Thank you, Al.
I believe that Republicans should represent family, God, job security, freedom, capitalism. It's about where your values are.
I
and my
just ask you this,
recommendation.
Al, just research me, and
No, I'll research you, Al, but I'm going to tell you, all the candidates that I support, I go, listen, I want to know where your values are, because if you get in there, can you stick to your values?
Yeah.
Or are you going to get easily swayed?
no, I'm not easily swayed. Everybody who knows me knows that.
Yeah. As long as your values don't represent Segalchata, then we'll be okay. Just don't say you want your opponent hanging from a pole. Anyway, Al, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem, Al.
All right.
Hopefully
Good to
see
meet
next
you
time
yesterday,
better
my
church
friend.
soon. Bye-bye.
There's an eyewitness to me getting thrown out of a Republican event yesterday. Al came up to me, and I didn't recognize him, but he's a listener. 702-221-7283. We got Rhonda Kennedy in studio. U.S. Senate, not state Senate. I made the mistake earlier in the show. Let's go to John. John, what's going on, man?
Well. We got Rhonda back in the studio. How are you, Rhonda?
I'm doing well. How are you, John?
I think it's hilarious that you refer to your rights. It's a constitutional right to bear arms.
Oh, really? It's not a right? It's not a right?
Well, you're a lawyer, right?
Yes. I'm just. It's not a right.
Okay. And you're tying that right to the Second Amendment of the Constitution, right?
Which right?
Are you slow? We're
no,
talking
I'm
about
not
gun
slow.
control, right?
You're ambiguous. It's vague and ambiguous. If I was in court, I would object to it because you said you tied that. You weren't specific. What are you referring to?
Okay. You're tying your right to bear arms to the Second Amendment of the Constitution, right?
I'm tying. Yes.
Okay. And the Constitution is a document that's subject to the interpretation of the Supreme Court, correct? As we discovered in Roe v. Wade and what's transpired over the past years.
Before that, it was Mulberry v. Madison, which is what gave the Supreme Court the power to review the laws.
Okay,
and to
well,
interpret
I
them.
agree. I understand. I'm a lawyer too, Rhonda.
I know.
I
So you should
understand. You're
say it
going
wasn't
way
Roe
back
v.
to the
Wade. It was
beginning of the.
Mulberry v. Madison.
Okay, Brian has a drawer full of cookies. Take a cookie out and get one and make sure you take your cookie with you when you leave.
I don't like cookies. I'll save those for the Cookie Monster.
Here's my point. Let's get to the chase. It's so hard to simple questions for you to
No,
answer.
well,
My
you're a
question
lawyer.
is
You
this.
should know it's hard to
You're
get a straight
saying-
to trap me down.
You're saying that your right is to defend yourself against the government. How will you and your AR-15, which you go on and on, it's
Well,
just a
no,
rifle,
actually, that's not my
which is-
favorite one.
How
My
is-
favorite one
let me
is.
ask the question, counselor. Let me get the question out.
Well,
How are you
I
gonna
have to
defend-
respond. You're being a little sarcastic. I
How
don't
are
know
you
if you're
going to
telling the
defend
truth.
yourself against the government that's going to come after you with drones? Is your little AR-15 rifle going to
What
protect you
drones?
against
Oh
drones?
my gosh, you seem, maybe we should have a red flag law here because you seem a little unstable. Like the drones are coming after me. Are UFOs coming after me next? I mean, come on now, let's
You
get
think your
let's get real.
AR-15? You think you're a lightweight, Rhonda. You think your AR-15
I'm a
is going to protect you
lightweight.
against the
What's a
government?
lightweight? What's a lightweight? I'm sorry. What's a lightweight?
When was the Constitution written? Back in the 1800s, right? Long time ago. And the government has improved its military might tremendously. And you and your little AR-15 isn't going to do jack buckus when the government comes after you. It's a joke.
But my
Your reason's totally flawed.
my M1A is actually my favorite rifle, and that's the one that won World War II. So my AR-15
Get another
is really,
cookie. Give her two
don't
cookies,
like.
Brian.
All right, hold on, let me
Better
interject.
than
Let me
M1A.
interject. Let me interject real quick. And you know, I think what John is saying is that he doesn't believe that an AR-15 will defend you in case you have to go, you know, defend yourself against the government with all the capabilities that they have. John, is that what you're trying to say?
That sounds speculative to
Exactly.
me. And the
Okay.
Second Amendment isn't speculative. So you're speculating.
Yes, it is.
You're
What's the Heller
speculating.
case?
You're
Rhonda, what's the Heller
speculating
case?
that an AR-15 would not protect me from the government, which is, as you know, is that what the Constitution? The Constitution was written to protect the citizens from the government. Is that correct? Can we agree on that?
That was my point from the beginning. You were the one who was struggling to agree with it.
No, I wasn't.
And I'm
struggling to
saying
agree.
that the government has
you were
advanced
saying that
weaponry now,
unidentified
including
flying objects
drones,
were going to come
that
down
won't
and attack
protect
me
you.
from the government.
Your AR-15 isn't going to do buckets for you against the drone.
My
Your reasoning's
my
flawed.
M1A will be just fine. But when you say the government, that's a broad statement. You're saying the U.S. military, or are you talking about, because the government is any government actor, as you know, as an attorney. So it's not going to protect me from any government actor?
I think what John, again, I'll speak for myself here, but I think if you have to defend yourself from the government, I'm not sure an AR-15 will be sufficient enough. Now, I don't think we're ever going to be in our lifetime having to do something like that, but I think that's what John is trying to say, is that, well, okay, an AR-15 is probably not going to protect you from a government arsenal.
Individual citizens wouldn't be fighting a government arsenal. I mean, there,
I'm
going
gonna-
back to the independent war, the independent war, the War of Independence.
Let's watch
Are
Rhonda
you
tap
are you
dance.
watching Sesame Street? Are you watching Sesame Street right now? Because that's what it sounds like, obviously.
John, be respectful. Be respectful, John.
See, I can take it, but you have to be able to take it when I give it.
All right,
because-
John, I'll give you the last word, and then because we're running out of time here, go ahead quickly. I'll give you about 40 seconds. Go ahead.
The Second Amendment to the Constitution was written a long time ago with muskets. It's not going to protect you against drones. And you refer to it as a right. Like, oh my God, it's a super special right. The seminal case on gun control is Heller, and it had to do with handguns in the District of Columbia. And the Supreme Court has made it crystal clear that Heller is not a bar against all gun regulations. And it is possible to regulate guns.
Can I just
All
have
right,
that?
John, I appreciate the call. I'm going to let Rhonda
McDougal-
respond, but
McDougal
thank you for
versus
calling in,
Ventura
John.
County. McDougal versus Ventura County. Look it up. It's funny how Heller helped me win that twice in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So that's all I have to say. Last word. McDougal versus Ventura County.
Yeah.
Have a nice day, John.
Interesting debate. I think I actually enjoyed staying out of that one. I'll be honest with you. Well, Rhonda, it is always a pleasure having you here. Now your second time in studio. I appreciate it. Always some colorful callers. That was not race related, by the way. I don't want people to think that. Yeah, I don't want any of the woke people thinking that was a racist statement. Colorful meaning interesting callers that call into the show. I don't know. In this day and age, you never know. I might get kicked out of another event if I just sit down because they don't like my beanie hat or something. I don't know. Interestingly enough, give people information, and if they want to get more information about you, where do they go?
Just look me up, RhondaKennedy.com. Or you can go to my website, RhondaKennedy.com, but preferably just Google me. I wanted you to see the various, aspects of me, not just what I put on my website, but who I am.
Sure. I'm trying to think how I'm going to title that phone call because I'm going to put that up on social media. Liberal, left-wing caller debates right-wing civil rights attorney running for Senate. You okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, and last time I checked it, the Second Amendment it's a constitutional right.
It is, but I think the argument the part that I agree with John is this, and I talk about this all the time, that Constitution was written when they had muskets. Times do change. I'm not saying people don't have a right to defend themselves, but when we compare a musket to like an AR-15. I think they're very different
So
weapons
then
that are used.
where does it end, though, Brian? Where
Sure.
does it end?
Well,
the
right
First
now-
Amendment. So you go after
right
the
now
Second
it ends.
Amendment.
Right
No,
now.
you go after the Second Amendment. What's next? Oh, the First Amendment was written the same time the Second Amendment was. So do we go after the First Amendment? Do we stop freedom of religion? Do we stop freedom of speech?
Well, no,
do we
because
go
that
after
hasn't
the
changed.
Fifth? Do we go after the Fifth Amendment?
Well, no,
it could be
because that
argued that
hasn't
it
changed.
changed. Well, technology has changed. Now
Sure.
we had newspapers back then.
Right.
Now we have cell phones, internet,
Sure.
all kinds of things. So you can make that argument that times have changed. So
Yeah.
the First Amendment should be restricted.
But I don't. Respectfully, I don't think it has. I think freedom of speech pertains to the government, and you're talking about private businesses. That hasn't changed in hundreds and hundreds of years. But when we talk about guns, as you know, every year they change and it evolves and it changes.
And they try. And what about the information task force that was put together by the Joe Biden administration? That was completely against the First Amendment. Thank God they disbanded it. But what I'm saying is, when you're sitting on that side and you only look at the Second Amendment as being bad, you have to collectively look at all the amendments and say what happens when they come after the First, what happens when they come after the Fifth, when they come after the Sixth. We have to protect the Constitution as a whole.
To me, nobody's coming after the First.
Not yet.
And I would also say nobody's coming after the Second either.
Well,
Again,
they're already coming after the First. They've already
How?
come after the First.
who?
Well, the government, a government task force
Mm-hmm.
for false information that's being put on the internet and on social media.
In regards to?
In regards to COVID, in regards to the elections, it doesn't matter what the subject.
What was the false information that was put forward by the government in regards
Not
to
the
the
government.
elections?
No. There was a
task force.
from
Okay.
the yes.
So what
that the Joe
information
Biden,
what information did Joe Biden put forward in regards to the elections that was false information?
No. It's his task force
Okay.
to go after other people who
Right.
put information that they consider to be false
Right.
on the internet.
Right.
That's not an attack on the First Amendment.
No, because we're talking about social media and we're talking about private business.
But the government, if there is a government
Right.
task force,
Because-
that is a government
Sure,
actor
because-
going after people who put information on the
Abs-
internet.
Absolutely, because while we still have freedom of speech, there are also consequences to the words you use. And if you incite violence, that's a crime. So what his task force is doing is making sure that that doesn't happen. This isn't about, I don't like that person because of their politics or that. If you say things on the internet, for example, medical misinformation that can kill people or incite violence, that is a crime. And that shouldn't happen.
Was anybody arrested during the summer of 2020? Because there was some violence going on all over the city. And
the
I
answer
tell
is-
you right now,
the
there
answer
was
is
some-
yes.
there was
Thousands
some-
of people were
There was some
arrested.
incitement.
Yeah, thousands of people were arrested. The answer is yes. Absolutely, 100%. If you're talking about
No. I'm talking about the political leaders who were inciting violence. They were inciting violence to 2020 election. I think you and I had this conversation before.
We did. I don't know which statement you're referring to. Maybe you can refresh my memory. We have to go here in a couple
we're gonna-
minutes, but yeah, I mean, this is a whole bowl of can of worms, and I think in general terms, nobody's going after your First Amendment. You have the right to go on a public sidewalk and say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean there's not consequences for the
Time,
things you
place,
say.
and manner.
Well, doesn't mean there aren't consequences to your words.
I
and-
mean, you can't do that. I mean, there's some places you can't do that without a permit, which is the Supreme Court said it's okay. Time,
Well-
place, and they can regulate time, place, and manner, not content.
Right.
But now they're trying
Correct.
to regulate content.
Well, if that content pertains to inciting
And
violence
who's
or
and who's the person that determines whether or not that incites violence, whether or not that was
Law
something that
enforcement.
raised at a level?
law enforcement.
Law enforcement.
Sure.
Ooh, that's scary.
Sure. Well, I mean, if somebody holds up a sign that says, I'm going to kill a certain number of people because of their race or religion or wants to incite violence and that type of thing, then that's a crime. And we'll leave that up to...
We'll have that conversation next time.
Fair enough. All right. Well, Rhonda, I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Always a good spirited debate and conversation, whether it be with me or with callers. Appreciate you being here, and we'll have you on again soon. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thank
and
you.
I will never support your opponent, Stephanie Phillips, who I think is a complete idiot. I just wanted to say that live on the air. That's two people I've called idiots now. Anyway, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, somebody who I admire very much, although, he's got a tough game tonight. The head UNLV basketball coach, Kevin Kruger, will be joining us next. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
I wish that I was at your side. I'd make you feel like you're alive.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Look, it's impossible for the average person to find a great attorney out there. There's so much misinformation. Now, let me introduce you to former Chief Deputy District Attorney Thomas Moskal. He was Las Vegas's top DUI prosecutor for years. He prosecuted the most high-profile DUI cases in Clark County. No one knows more about DUI law in Nevada. Just Google it. If you get charged with DUI, whether it's a misdemeanor or even more importantly, a felony, you need Thomas Moskal representing you. His relationships with the prosecutors and judges and his knowledge of DUI law to work for you. So give him a call now or text him at 702-848-5555. It's your life and liberty.